Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to your app publishing class. This is actually our last class. Okay, so in this class, I'll be explaining the tips, steps, and concepts around app publishing, and then I'll be showing you the Play console, which is where you manage everything related to app publishing, okay, for Play Store. Uh, so yeah, welcome everyone. Okay, so first of all, um need to understand, why do you need to publish your app? I know we all know why you need to publish your app. And after writing your beautiful code that solves a problem that users asked for or did not ask for, you need to actually find a way to distribute it to the end user, the people that will be using it, right? So and there are a lot of platforms actually that you can publish your applications on. Okay. If you web developer, you don't need to publish, you just deploy, buy a domain, everything is live. But if you're a developer, a mobile developer, you need to publish to a store. And there are a lot of stores out there. There is on Android, there is Google Play Store, which is the standard and the approved and the most trusted. You have other stores, Palm Store and other third-party stores, right? Okay, so well, essentially, we want to publish on the trusted platform store, which is the Google Play Store. Okay, and Google Play Store, with Google Play Store, you can reach billions of Android users, all over the world. Okay, and with Google Play Store, you can do things like monetization. You can monetize your apps, the Google Play console. Can sell your apps so that when they want to install it, they pay, or you can sell subscriptions or in-app purchases. All these things you have to do them through the Google Play console, set them up through the Google Play console. Right. So first of all, the thing you need to do to get started is, first of all, create a Google Play developer account. Google Play developer account. So you head over to their site. You just search in Google, you see Google Play developer account, just have Google Play developer account. You bring out the site, you go there, create an account, and then you pay a one-time fee of $25. Okay. This is where people usually get stuck because card issues and all the rest of them, right? So you should be able to figure that out with your bank, pay with the appropriate type of card. So to the main thing, right? For you to deploy or want to publish an app means that you finish writing the code and you finished packaging it. Right now on Android, there are two packaging formats that are supported. There is the .apk file, which I request for most times, for you to upload to advertise, and then the .aab format, right? The .apk format is I wouldn't call it a legacy format, right? But it's the older version. Okay, basically these things are archive files, something like a zip file. We just a fancy name. It's actually a zip file, or they just give it a fancy name, .apk. It just bundles your application compiled code, the assets, and every other thing that your application needs to survive on a user device. Zips it up and just gives it the .apk extension. So that's that. And for you to do that, of course, you need to have the Android Studio installed. So because Android Studio comes with the tools for building application bundles. .apk, .aab, they are called application bundles, right? So when you're done with that and you've created your developer account, that means you are ready to start publishing. So the first thing you should do is go to, I think I should share my notes here. Okay, first thing you should do is to open up your Google Play Developer Console. When you open up the dashboard, you see options where you can create an application. Okay, so you create an application, give it a name. Okay, give it an app ID. You know, com dot for Android is usually com dot is a reversed domain system. Let me explain it that way. In a domain name, you can have something like uh, app.codecamp.com. Then the reverse of it would be com.codecamp.app. So that's what an app ID is. So it's something that uniquely identifies your application on Google Play, right? No two apps can have the same app ID. Okay, so just take note of that. Okay, so your app IDs have to be unique. They don't have to be a verified domain, And you set these things, if you're using Flutter, you set these things during the initialization of the project. I'm sure you know how to do that. Okay, so set the default language of your application, because Google Play Store is not only specific to Nigerian speaking countries, you know. So you set the language and set whether the app is a game or a normal user application. Then you go back to the store listing, blah, blah, blah. Those ones are uh, self-explanatory, where you enter the short, long descriptions of the application, enter screenshots. For instance, if you go to Play Store with your phone, if you're using an Android device, right? Go to Play Store with your phone and you want to download an app. Once you click on the details of the application, you see the store listing information, you know, things like who is the app for, is data encrypted, does the app collect all those things, those information, metadata about the application, you see it on your Play Store when you want to download an application. So you set that in the Google Play console, right? So when you are done entering all those information about your app, now this is where the music starts, right? So you now choose whether you want to release your app to testing or production. Okay, so these are two different, two important uh, concepts, testing and production, and they have different requirements, right? So on Android, we have something called internal testing, closed testing, and open testing. These are three testing tracks that we have on Android, and uh, on App Store, which is the iOS counterpart. I think not. It is actually one testing track. That's test flight, right? But we're focusing on Play Store for now, right? And when we head over to the dashboard, I'll show you the different testing tracks. Okay, so basically the first testing track, you see the internal testing, right? It allows it to send your app to over 100 testers through Play Store. You know, for you to do that, you have to explicitly add their email as testers. So when you submit that, Play Store will send them an notification that someone added them as testers, that they will go to Play Store and install the application. And mind you, it is only those that are in your email list that will see the application to install and test. That's the first testing track. Okay, this track does not require review. Okay, review is when you send your application to Google Play console developer, the platform, and they look at it. They check if the app is of standard, if there are any frivolous bugs that might negatively impact users, things like unresponsiveness, app crashing, overuse of memory, so you review it and they get back to you, right? But this internal testing does not require review. Review usually takes up to 24 hours to 2 days, 3 days, right? On average. So internal testing, like I said, up to 100 testers, you add them explicitly with an email list. Closed testing, it takes it up a notch to up to 2,000 testers. Okay, and it requires review. Okay, for you to enter the closed testing track, Google has to review and approve your application for closed testing. Open testing is a limited number of testers. There is no cap. It can be a million on this end, but let's be real, where will you find a million people to test your application? Okay, so but again, open testing requires review, right? So I've explained three testing tracks. Now you have the internal testing, closed testing, and open testing. Okay, so you set the testing track, and this is assumed that you've already finished entering the information, the metadata about your application, right? finish entering the information. So when you choose the testing track, you'll be prompted to upload an application bundle. You remember you built application bundle previously, because if you've not built an application bundle, that means you're not ready to start publishing, right? Okay, build application bundle and you upload it. That's all. Check it out. No much force around it, right? So, but when you are done testing and you're not ready to submit to production, you now do the production one. All these things are on the dashboard. You do a create release, upload the APK file, and all these things. So the important thing to note is that before you go to all these things, you must have entered your app listing information, app ID, all those necessary things. That's where people get lost, right? App name, app ID, prepare the store listing, metadata, screenshots, feature graphics, privacy policy URL, those things are required, right? Okay. So um let me quickly show. Okay, so this is what the dashboard, this is what the Google Play Console dashboard looks like, right? And it is assumed that you've already signed up, right? But if you visit it for the first time, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so you can see it's prompting me to create an account if you don't already have an account. Okay, so you do that. When you follow the steps, you get to the point where you're asked to pay $25, and after paying that $25, you approve your account and you can now sign in, right? But I have an account, an associated account rather, that I would like to use to show you what the console looks like. So I'm just going to sign into the account right now. Okay. Okay, so it takes a minute, right? On this account, there's one application that is published to production, right? So quickly open it up. So if you look at the left panel here, left panel, you can see those things I mentioned: test and release, monetize with play, pro users, right? But let's look at testing and release. Okay, you can see the different testing tracks here. So if you can look at where I'm highlighting with my cursor, see the open testing, close testing, and internal testing tracks, which I explained earlier. So, and you have the production section too. So if I open that up, so if you want to create a new production application, production means is everybody's going to see it on Playstore, right? You click on this button, create a new release, follow the steps and upload an application bundle, submit it for review, right? Or if you're not ready for that just yet, you can come up here. Okay, so take a look at this. This is part of the information I entered and setup I entered for this application. Select the country, select testers, etc. Okay. There was no closed test and internal testing for this application, so no information about that, right? So this is what the dashboard for Play Console looks like. So with this dashboard, you can monitor the installs. If you're using things like Firebase Crashlytics or Sentry to monitor app activity, you can hook them up with Google Play Console and monitor crash rates, the number of devices your app is crashing on, the rate at which it's crashing, all those things, and monitor them here, right? This basically like a data analytics dashboard that gives you insights into how your app is performing in production. And this can be very, very invaluable tool. For instance, if you're running a business, you don't want your customers to be always complaining about a faulty or buggy application, right? So that's what you can use this dashboard to do, right? Okay. Inika, your hand is up.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Can you hear me,
go
sir?
ahead with your question. Yes, go ahead with your question.
Okay, I want to know all those testing. Is it that our application must pass through all those testing before we go to production, or you choose the one you want?
You choose, actually. You choose. You choose. You choose. And it's always important to test before you release to production so you don't you don't tell stories that touch the heart. Okay, because you as a developer, right? You're not thinking like an end user. Someone once told me that the end user will use and misuse your application, right? But you as a developer, you're coding your application, you know where all the right things are. So you kind of subconsciously try to avoid the wrong and doing things the right way. But your user doesn't know and is going to use and misuse your app. So and you catch these things in during internal testing. So you don't have to do all the three tests that I explained. There's internal, closed, and open, right? You do not have to do three of them. Okay. Uh, you can do open testing. Now, when you're satisfied, um, you move to production. Now, sometimes a while back, Google Play Console, they placed a restriction that said that you must do um internal testing. You must
Okay.
do closed testing, and up to 20 users must opt in for that closed testing before your app can be considered for approval. But I think they made
Production.
away with that restriction, right? Because it doesn't really serve anybody. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, don't they? I thought you mentioned something like 100 users. Don't they do it again?
100 users is for internal testing.
So 20 users are for which one?
Okay. I explained that a while back, if I remember correctly, Google placed a restriction for normal developer accounts, not company accounts. You know that with Play Console, actually experienced earlier, there is a developer account as a company account. What I mean by that is you can come on and sign up as a developer, the solo developer, or you can create an account as a company. And of course, creating an account on a company, you have to verify, submit your CAC and all those things, right? The document. So for developer accounts, they made a restriction that 20 testers have to opt in and test your application before it can be considered for production. So you were asking whether you must test, you must enter the testing track before you can roll out production. And I was using this to answer you, right? Okay, so yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, okay. So an important distinction, developer and company account, right? As a developer, as a solo developer, if you're going to be deploying your own apps or projects or maybe simple applications that are not for businesses, you can create a simple developer account. But if you have a business, you register business with CAC and all the rest of them, it is always advised that you sign up as a company instead. Because there are certain applications that you are not allowed to publish on Playstore as a solo developer. Things like health, um, apps that require exchange, monetary exchange, exchange of tokens, all those things. You have to be signed up as a
What about
company
what
to
if
do
you
those
run,
things.
sorry, sir, what if you run application that is maybe people pay for it? Is it that developers cannot do app like that they monetize, or
No,
crypto
no,
applications,
yes,
things like that?
you can't, you can't. That's a restriction, right? Anything that requires monetary exchange, right? Uh, you can't you can't publish those kind of applications as a developer account on Google Play. You have to be signed up as a company because think of a situation where a user maybe makes an exchange of what, $100,000, and you're unable to track the solo developer, or it just doesn't make sense. If you're running something that huge that requires monetary exchange, you should have a business that does it. So they are expecting you to register your business with Google Play Console. Okay. They need to be able to know and verify that you're actually a proper business for them to allow you to deliver applications to users that will require them to, make some kind of exchange. So things like Binance, Bybit, crypto applications, um, government applications, all those things, they require a company account. But as a developer, as a solo developer, there are other ways you can monetize, right? That way you can monetize if you're not a business. So all hope is not lost. For instance, you can sell subscriptions. If you are building a game application, um, well, not subscriptions. If you're building a game application, of course, you can sell in-app purchases. I'm sure you know what in-app purchases are. If you play games, I'm sure you get to the
Yes,
store
yes,
where
I
they
know
ask
what
you
in-app
to.
purchases are.
Okay, beautiful. Get to the store where they ask you to enter your credit card and pay, blah blah blah. That's a way for monetizing. Okay. But if you're building a utility application, an app that solves the user problem, right? In this day and age, a lot of people are building AI applications, using AI to do everything, even though nobody asks them to do, right? So you can sell subscriptions for their application, right? And also another way of monetizing, I've explained in-app purchases, subscriptions. Another way of monetizing is as a solo developer, you can you can um you can run ads, yes, ads on your application. There are different ad networks. You have the Google Ad Mob and Facebook ad. You can run them on your application, the and all the rest of them. So yes, that's an important distinction to make.
Okay,
Okay,
sir,
so I
sorry,
just
one
quickly
last. What
Mhm.
if can I convert my developer account to a company account? Is it possible? Or I have to
Yes, I'm sure you
re-register
can do
again?
that. No, I'm not certain. I'm not certain you can do that. I'm not certain you can do that with the same email, right? But I'm sure there'll be workarounds around that. I've not actually used I've not used the developer account actually. So I do not know if you can do that, but I know there is distinction between developer and company accounts. So yeah. So for App Store, I'm sure you understand the basic concept of publishing, right? It's just basically the same thing. And I'm sure if you go over to App Stores, other app stores like Palm Store and all the rest of them, is roughly the same process that you would you would follow, right? But the thing is, the App Store is a little bit tricky, uh, because it requires you to do things like provisioning profile and all the rest of them, and it requires you to, of course, you have to have Xcode. Xcode installed on your system, and I'm currently on a Linux system, so necessarily I wouldn't be able to show you that, right? Okay, but basically in App Store is the same equivalent of Google Play Console is something called App Store Connect. Okay, App Store Connect is like the equivalent of Google Play Console for Android. Okay, so you first of all you have to enroll in the Apple Developer Program, and um set up App Store Connect. For you to do that, you have to have an Apple account. Have Apple ID and all the rest of them. All right. So once you're done setting up the App Store Connect, setting up an account, right? You have to create something called a provisioning profile. A provisioning profile. Each provisioning profile is matched to an application, right? Each provisioning profile is specific to an application, right? Provisioning profile, think of it like certificates, the Apple uses to identify your application on a user's device to kind of say, okay, this app belongs to who it said it belongs to, right? On Google Play Store, the concept is same as signing, app signing. I'm sure we know what app signing is, right? Key store and all the rest of them. So in App Store, you use provisioning profiles to do that. So when you create an application, add your bundle ID, the reverse domain that I mentioned earlier, for instance, com.codecamp.app or org.codecamp.app. Okay. That's what your app ID is going to be. If you don't know what your app ID is, just go into your code and search app ID to come up. Okay, so once you've created an application, open it up, add descriptions, keywords, subtitles, screenshots, listing information, just like it is with Playstore, right? Nothing special here. So, but then where the main story starts is testing and production, right? In Playstore, we have internal testing, closed testing, and open testing. Test flight. And under that test flight, you have internal testing, external testing, and public link, which works almost the same way as Google Play's own, right? So for internal testing, up to 100. For external testing, 10,000 users can opt in via email invites. You just add their emails and Apple sends them an email invite, right? And they get to App Store and download your application and start testing. And then the final one to the public link testing, right? Requires app review. Apple has to approve your application before you can opt for public link. And Apple's review usually takes 2 to 4 days, as they say, but I've waited for 7 to 10 days for review to come back to me, so, but yeah, let's just call it 24 to 48 hours, right? So what are the steps to upload your application to test flight? First of all, you finish writing your Flutter code, right? You need to package it for iOS. In as much as Flutter is a cross-platform framework, don't be deceived. You still need to know some native skills. Even if you don't know Swift or Kotlin, you need to know how to, edit some native scripts and add some information to the native files. Things like info.plist, you should be able to know how to edit them and all the rest of them, right? Because it comes in handy. So you build an IOF release, an IPA file. IPA is the equivalent of .apk. Not IPA, not IPA. A dot app, yes. .app, yes. For iOS .app. All these names, all these bundles. Okay, you build a .app. How do you do that? You do a Flutter build release iOS, right? It generates a .app. Now that .app is like an intermediate. That is not what you upload um to App Store Connect. This is where people might get confused, right? So you need to transform that .app to a .ipa. So how do you do that? You can only do that with Xcode. Okay. So you have to open up the application in your Xcode and archive. So archive is like a command or process that you run that transforms your intermediate output into what will be uploaded to App Store Connect for the test flights or production, what's not, right? So when you archive it, it generates because IPA file that you can now upload to test flight or App Store Connect production, right? So those are the steps for App Store, right? So I'm sure that if you want to deploy on iOS, right, you should have your Xcode ready, which is very, very important, right? So like we know Xcode only works on MacBooks. So have your MacBook and Xcode ready to do all that. Okay, so does anyone have any question at this point? Something that you didn't understand, or maybe the challenge you are facing, you're currently trying to deploy an application and you are stuck somewhere. This is the time you ask the question. Okay. All right. So in the absence of any question, I think that brings us to the natural conclusion of this class. Thank you everyone for joining.
No, sir.